Almost everyone asks themselves the same question at some point. Not out loud, not in a conversation, but quietly, when no one is listening. Am I actually someone special? Or just average? Most people think this question appears later in life, but in reality, it begins much earlier. Once you understand when it begins, you notice something else. Millions of people spend their lives trying to solve a problem that was silently taught to them. The fear of being average doesn't appear in adulthood. It begins much earlier, in a moment so normal that almost no one questions it. A child walks into school with a simple expectation to understand how the world works and where they fit inside it. But instead of learning what they are naturally good at, they learn something else first. They learn that their value is measured, not by what exists inside them, but by how they perform compared to others. And the moment a person begins seeing themselves through rankings and evaluations, something important happens. They slowly lose the ability to recognize themselves from within. What replaces it is a quiet suspicion millions of people know. Maybe I'm just average. Most people don't remember the moment they lost themselves, because no one ever tells a child, from now on, don't be yourself anymore. It happens quietly. At some point, a child notices that what naturally comes from them is not always what gets recognized. So they learn something else. They learn to function. Chapter 1. Why so many adults secretly feel like they're not enough. Most people rarely say it out loud, but the same thought appears everywhere. I could have done more with my life. Others seem further ahead than me. Maybe there's nothing special about me. These thoughts don't appear suddenly. They grow slowly, and eventually they start feeling like truth. Not because they are true, but because they've been repeated long enough. Most people can't say when this feeling began. There was no dramatic moment. It starts quietly. A glance at the grade list, a comparison with someone faster, a teacher saying, "That's not quite enough yet," and suddenly a child begins learning something dangerous. Not about math, not about language, but about how to look at themselves. Chapter 2. The moment a child begins watching themselves. Kenji was 7 when he first realized people were being evaluated. Not through words, through reactions. One child received praise, another criticism, a third was ignored. Children quickly learn when someone is seen and when they're not. And the moment attention feels uneven, something automatic begins. Comparison. What did that child do? Why were they noticed? What do I need to do to be noticed too? From that moment, something shifts. The focus moves outward. The child isn't just learning knowledge. They're learning a system where attention seems limited, where some people are seen and others disappear. So children adjust, not toward what they enjoy, but toward what works. Chapter 3. Why most people never discover their real strengths. In school, something subtle happens. When a child shows a strength, it's acknowledged briefly. Good job. Then the class moves on. But when a weakness appears, everything stops. You need to improve here. Over time, a pattern forms. Strengths are accepted. Weaknesses are analyzed. So attention moves again and again to the same place. What isn't enough yet? Eventually, the child begins believing something no one said directly. Something about me must be wrong. Chapter 4. Why average starts to feel like invisibility. Kenji was never the worst student, but he was rarely the best either. He lived where most people live, the middle. Statistically, that's where most people sit, but psychologically, that place feels empty, because attention focuses on two groups, the top performers, and the problem cases. The middle simply works, and because it works, it's rarely noticed. A person can function for years without anyone truly seeing them, and eventually they begin believing there's nothing special to see, and that's where the fear of being average begins. Chapter 5. The hidden problem with comparison. When people constantly compare themselves to others, something happens. Comparison creates a moving sense of identity. Today you're ahead of someone. Tomorrow someone else is ahead of you. Your sense of worth keeps shifting, and something that constantly shifts never feels stable. That's why many adults feel something strange. Their life works, but something still feels missing. Not success, orientation. When no one tells you what you stand for, you try to figure out where you stand. Ranking can feel like orientation, until you realize the ranking constantly changes. And that's why trying to become extraordinary often ends in exhaustion. Chapter 6. The question many people eventually ask. Years later, Kenji sits in a Zen temple in Kyoto. Not because he became religious, but because he's tired. Tired of constantly trying to place himself somewhere. In the garden, an old man slowly rakes lines through the sand. Kenji watches him. Then he asks a question many people eventually ask. How do you become extraordinary? The old man looks at him and says something unexpected. You're trying to become extraordinary because you believe you're average. Chapter 7. The misunderstanding. The old man draws a circle in the sand. Average only exists where things can be compared. Numbers, measurements, statistics. Human beings don't work like that. In nature, there is no average. There are only functions. But modern systems treat people like numbers. Speed, productivity, success. And if someone lives inside that system long enough, they start seeing themselves the same way. That's when a dangerous question appears. Am I enough? Chapter 8. Why comparison drains energy. The old man explains something Kenji recognizes. Comparison forces the brain into constant self-evaluation. Am I better? Am I worse? Am I enough? These questions create continuous mental activity. Many people think they're exhausted from working. In reality, they're exhausted from judging. Chapter 9. The Japanese Way. In Zen, change doesn't begin with motivation, it begins with form. A simple action, a clear structure, a movement repeated every day, because form replaces comparison with orientation. When someone knows what they do each day and why, comparison loses its power. Orientation comes from within. Chapter 10. The moment comparison loses its power. Kenji asks one last question. How do you stop comparing yourself? The old man smiles. You don't. Comparison doesn't disappear through willpower. It disappears when it becomes irrelevant. And that happens when someone begins structuring their life through inner form instead of external ranking. The old man sets the rake aside. Then he says one final sentence. Discipline isn't what you do. It's what you stop negotiating.